What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It's time for a review of the 9th studio album by Detroit rapper Eminem. It's called Revival, which kind of completes the cycle of relapse, recovery, revival. Now we have an hour and 18-minute album called Revival, supposedly completing a cycle there and showing his return to form or else return to life in terms of his involvement in the world of rap. Eminem comes back at a very volatile time in our world, a very fragile time in our country in the United States, and he's been very outspoken for his disapproval of Donald Trump, our current president of the US, and he did the cypher at the BET Awards that kind of put him back on the map. I was one of the people that really did like what he was going for there. I admit that maybe he felt a bit off or a bit winded, something felt a little bit different, but it was Eminem just coming at us with something and we hadn't heard from him in a while, so I was excited by it, and I was actually one of the people that liked Walk on Water, the lead-off single and the opening track from this record that features Beyonce. This is a song that does feel much more fragile and emotionally inclined and vulnerable, and I was okay with that, and I'm still okay with that. It opens up, it might not be the most replayable song in the world, but I thought if this is him just kind of bridging the gap between his last record, the Marshall Mathers LP 2, which I did enjoy overall, and this new material, then I'm okay with this. I'm interested to see where this is going. Did it lead to somewhere interesting? I would say that the bridge collapsed somewhere along the way because this LP is a disaster. I might not cover a ton of rap and hip hop on my channel, but I know my audience and I know that they don't usually come to me for that. There's other critics like Spectrum Pulse, The Needle Drop, obviously Dead End Hip Hop, Mike Seatown's channel that covers stuff like this. So I'm not usually dipping my toes into the water of the unknown unless it's something that I am either a fan of or I'm passionate about or I've been wanting to check out for a long time and just decided, hey, why not? I'm gonna do this. And I have been a longtime fan of Eminem, so obviously I wanted to review this record. I've been listening to Eminem ever since one of my friends in like 3rd grade walked into Sunday school with a pierced ear and bleached blonde hair. And I said, hey, why are you doing that? And then I heard about D12 and Purple Pills, and the rest is history. The Slim Shady LP, the Eminem Show, obviously the Marshall Mathers LP 1, and even a good chunk of 2. I really enjoy much of his material, but at this point in his career, he's definitely had some misfires. Just look to stuff like Relapse and parts of Recovery, which I had a hard time kind of walking the line in between tracks that I just hated and ones that I found to be pretty good. And at this point, he's in his mid-40s, and I really feel like he doesn't have a ton to offer us that we haven't heard from him before. He's coming in, like I said, at a very weird point in his own career and in our country, and he's all over the chart with what he wants to get across here. He talks about Donald Trump in one song and his white privilege, like on Untouchable, which at its core, I think his intentions were good. But he doesn't sound, not just on this song, but all throughout this record, like himself. He doesn't sound like the Eminem that we've known and loved. Something about him this entire record just feels different and perhaps a bit less uninspired, like he wanted to write things, but he didn't exactly know how to go about it. And Untouchable is a perfect example of that. He portrays himself as maybe this bigot, somebody who is against black people and other minorities in one part of the song, and then he speaks from an African American's point of view on the other track. And it's just a back and forth that I don't know how to perceive because it sounds fine in places, but the chorus just gets so unbearable, and that's something that just plagues much of this record, Revival. The choruses definitely feel a bit off, and some of them are just jarring and downright unpleasant. Just look to some of the tracks that pop up later in the track listing, like Offended and Especially Framed, which is trying to be funny. Both of those tracks trying to be funny, and I have to put an emphasis, an asterisk, on the trying part because they are not at all. We'll go through some of the lines here in a minute, but dear God, Offended in particular, I couldn't stomach. And just with that other track, Framed, he goes off about Melania Trump being in his trunk and some other rhymes that just feel like they were done for the sake of making something rhyme. I mean, even the band D. Antwood spoke out about that with Untouchable. I think he says it is Die Antwood, and they went off about, what if we mispronounced your name? So it doesn't seem like he's getting the warmest reception from fellow artists and even some fans, so it'll be interesting to see how this is perceived commercially and critically. Not being a hip-hop head myself, I agree with what Eminem was saying on paper, talking about mumble rappers, trap, things in general that just felt off about the world of the rap game right now. And to see him coming in and doing Amigos flow on a track, I'm talking about Chloraseptic, which features Fresher, it's very odd. I get that it's kind of done as like a wink and an elbow, but it just sounds downright cringy. Some of the bars there are really, really weak, and I don't see this holding up whatsoever. And as I listen through this record, I see more and more of his ideas, like I said, and the original concepts that I was interested in just go by the wayside as he nearly blows the potential of almost every song here. Was I skeptical when I saw the track listing? Absolutely. I saw some of the features here, and I was wondering, why are there not more rappers on this? Why are there so many pop artists and singers on this? Of course, we have his longtime collaborator, Skylar Grey. We've been hearing from her for a long time. Just look back to I Need a Doctor. And in fact, the track with Skylar Grey here feels like a less good version of I Need a Doctor. I think she's got a great voice, but on Eminem's tracks where he has her, they all just feel like the same to me. Like Home features Alicia Keys, and she's no stranger to the world of rap and doing features. Just look to a great song that did kind of cross genres, Empire State of Mind, that came out in '09. She's a fantastic singer. I loved her work with Jay-Z. I loved her collaboration, Another Way to Die, with Jack White. But here, it just feels like ramblings, and it feels so disjointed and unconnected. So many of these tracks do not have a kin about them. They don't feel like they're coming from the same vein. In fact, it's like a vein of the body trying to take the blood at all places at all times. We get yet another collaboration with Pink on Need Me, and I have to bring up the question, who keeps asking for all of these Pink and Eminem collabs? They're both great at what they do on their own, but I don't know how many times I just need Pink and Eminem teaming up. It seems like, especially since he went out of his way to get some other people, he could have done something else here, but I understand they were probably in the studio cooking up Revenge from her most recent album, so here we have another collaboration that just feels really strange because it comes right after Offended, which is trying very hard to be funny. Like I said, trying very hard to be funny. And then we get into a serious track, which the first minute or so is led off by Pink before we even get to Eminem. And it just, like I said, feels so out of place and so disconnected. For some ungodly reason, ex-ambassadors are featured on the track Bad Husband, which is another apology track to Kim, his ex-wife this time. You might remember Headlights on the Marshall Mathers LP2, apologizing to his mother for tracks like Cleaning Out My Closet, all the times that he basically violently threatened her and all the things that, he said that she did to him, messing with his head, all of the drugs, the drinking, everything like that. He hated his mom to death. You could pretty much tell that from his music, and he was very, very angry about her, and he finally seemed to let those feelings go. But at this point, I feel like we're just getting Eminem that's attempting to turn over new leaves for the sake of something to write about, and this track, Bad Husband, seems so cheesy to me. It feels so forced, and if this was like a written apology, like if like all of these public apologies we've been seeing lately went viral, I feel like everybody would just be mocking it and saying like, I don't buy this. And to me, I know it's for a song, but here I don't really feel any kind of passion in the music. It just feels like another song in the track listing that doesn't stand out. And Ex-Ambassador's feature on the chorus here, it's really trying to sell you on that earnest angle, but I don't buy it. We get some of these other ones like Remind Me, which have some very cringy bars, which once again, we're gonna sit down and read some of them in just a minute. We will get to that. Then we've got the one that everybody was talking about because it's like, okay, he's really trying to get a hit here or something. He's got Ed Sheeran featured on the track River. Now, Ed himself said to Billboard that he wrote this back in like March of 2016. He was contacted by Paul, which is Eminem's manager, and he said, hey, we're starting on the record. Do you want to get involved, send us your ideas, and then Ed ships it off and doesn't hear anything for the longest time, and then, whoa, what do you know? It's on the record. So that right there should kind of tell you that there's not a ton of chemistry that's felt in this track. It just feels like the meshing of two stars for the sake of two stars aligning for a collaboration that's going to be big commercially. And it sounds fine. In fact, I like Ed on this track better than I like Eminem, if I'm being quite honest. He sounds great during the bridge, and I do like the interpolation of Eminem's voice on that one. So there, it's fine. The chorus is okay, but some of the bars that Eminem drops, it just once again weighs it down. It takes away from the potent punch that it could have been. I will say that River is one of the better songs here. One of my favorites alongside other moments like Chloraseptic and Walk on Water, but even those, I have my issues with them, and that's troubling. The songs that close out this record are actually kind of a nice touch, and I understand what they're going for. It's just that after sitting through a lot of the record, it makes them, I don't know, maybe a bit more tedious to the ear, especially if you're already familiar with Marshall Mathers' situation coming up, his start, his debut album Infinite, and everything like that. But he talks about on Castle, his first daughter Haley being born. This was December of 1995, and he kind of wraps through his entire story there, being nervous for her to be born, wanting his rap career to take off, and being frustrated that Eminem did not perform well with his debut album Infinite. Didn't even sell 1,000 copies originally, which is absolutely crazy to think about. Eminem not being commercially viable, I don't know. So it's a cool enough story, it's fine, but the track's production doesn't really grip you. And that's another problem that I wanted to bring up here. It's something where I feel like Rick Rubin and the other producers involved with the project, instead of going for a gripping instrumental, they kind of played off the whole Berserk thing like they did on MMLP2. It's something where they grab that Beastie Boys instrumental and then Eminem starts spitting fire over it, which I like that song a whole lot. It's kind of crazy and it has a vivacious energy to it. But here, he grabs so many choruses from the world of rock and then other movies, and then even the Knife Game song, you know, where you would like stab your fingers really fast and you and your schoolyard friends would sing the song. Yeah, I know it. Maybe some of you newer kids don't know it. Anyways, we have a lot of weird pop culture references jammed into this record in terms of the samples, and I feel like they're just kind of hastily used here and just used far too frequently. Like on the track Heat, for example. I mean, it samples Boogie Nights, a song from that, a 90s film. And the way that it pops up here, it just feels kind of like, what were you thinking there on that one? And then obviously on In Your Head, we've got a sample of the Cranberries song from the 90s, which I love. And then Andy from The Office famously sung the In Your Head, In Your Head. And then it's sampled here on this track, and it's not even really shifted at all. It's just him rapping over the instrumental, and then the actual chorus is just played in its entirety. It's not even really cut up at all. And then he does that on another track, which is using I Love Rock and Roll by Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. And I'm once again thinking to myself, okay, where is this going? This is the track Remind Me, and I'm thinking, what's gonna go here? And then he just kind of changes a few words, and that's it. I've pretty much made all my criticisms that I wanted to about this record. I could go in further and tear it apart, but instead, we're just gonna sit down and read through some of these atrocious lyrics that pop up. First, we have a few lines from Chloraseptic. Grabs the crown of my dick and blows me to kingdom come. Till I feel anointed, she makes iller noises. When she's with me, must be from the Windy City. A pretty apparent, she's a MILF. When blowing me. This next one is from Offended, and I might add, it's a joke song, but Eminem's in his mid-40s, and let's just say it doesn't sound the same or even remotely funny coming out of him now as perhaps it would have 25 years ago, so take it with caution, but let's go ahead and read. I'm so narcissistic, when I fart, I sniff it. Do a fake dab to smell my armpits with it. Your anxiety throwing gang signs, but I made strides with these rape lines. From Like Home with Alicia Keys. When we can't wear stars and stripes, cause this type of pickle, wait for it, we're in is hard to deal. Get it? The way he says it, it's like a dill pickle. Whew. And finally, I'd like to quote a portion from Remind Me, the track that features the Joan Jett sample, as on verse 2 he says the following: "I'm looking at your tight rear like a sightseer. Your booty is heavy duty like diarrhea." Okay then. This is honestly one of those moments where I'm very torn because I don't just want to shit all over this project, but it was not good. And honestly, at this point, he's rapping about talking about how he's never gonna fall off and these other things, and he literally just seems like he's fallen by the wayside. He seems like a shell of his former self, trying to reignite some of the fire that was built up in him in the first place. And honestly, his diehards are going to eat this up. It's going to be something that they're all over, especially if you get on Genius. I mean, if you ever want to see anybody sucking off artists constantly, just look at the comments on Genius. You will think that every new song they drop is the best thing that they have ever made every single time, bar none. I can't even read the comments half the time because they're ludicrous. Anyways, this is all just my opinion on the new album Revival, the 9th one by Eminem. It's not a good one in my opinion. It's something that I do not see myself coming back to whatsoever. In fact, I don't even really have strong favorites on this project. It was just something where I listened to it and every track felt like it had something that was off about it. And I think a lot of it had to do with Eminem's flow, the production, and the lyrics feeling very, very forced. Anyways, me personally, I can't give this thing any more than a light 1.5 out of 5. It's all just my opinion though. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below, and please, while you're at it, drop a like on the video. If you would like to support my content and help videos keep coming not only on this channel, but beyond ARTV as well, then tap this annotation to go over and donate on Patreon. It's also the top link down below. If you would like to see my Marshall Mathers LP2 review, you can tap right over here, or another rap review right over here. Everything else is linked in the description, and I'll see you very soon right here on ARTV.